Fantastic. Well, we might kick things off. I know we still have some people rolling in, but while everyone is jumping on board, I just wanted to say a quick welcome to everyone. I know we have people joining us from all around the world today, by the looks of it. So I'm really glad that you could all be here with us for 50 Shades of Retrospective by Chris Stone. So Chris is also known as the Virtual Agile Coach, and he has a decade of experience working with high-performing teams in a wide range of industries all around the world, so that I'm sure we'll all get a lot out of the workshop today. My name is Tennille. I'm your host here from Easy Agile. We make apps for Jira that help teams be agile. And I personally believe that the best way for teams to improve and get better every time is to hold regular team retrospectives. So I'm really pleased to be able to bring you this workshop today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This is a live and interactive workshop, so I encourage you all to participate as much as possible. But could you please keep your microphones off while you aren't speaking, just to avoid any unexpected background noise. You'll see the controls for your camera and microphone at the bottom of the screen there. If you're having trouble with that, I'll post some troubleshooting tips from Big Marker in the chat in just a moment. The workshop is being recorded, and I'll be sharing the recording with you all in the next few days. So lastly, you're very welcome to use the chat functionality to ask questions at any time, but you'll be invited to participate at many points throughout the workshop. So please feel free to jump in and make the most out of today. So that's enough from me. Let's get into the workshop. It's over to you, Chris.
Right. Thank you, Tennille, and thank you to everyone joining me today from all corners of the world, by the sounds of it, especially to those of you that got up really early. I'm not a morning person myself, so kudos for turning up. You will note inside the chat a link to a Miro board has appeared. If you navigate your way there to that link, that will allow you to interact with me during the session today. Obviously, if you prefer to do so, feel free to speak aloud or type in the chat any questions or comments. I hate just talking at people, so this isn't a one-way presentation. It'll be an interactive session, so navigate your way there. And I will also share my screen for any of you that aren't able to access that Miro board for whatever reason. That will allow you to participate and follow along also. So as a starting point, as mentioned, Chris Stone, there's a little bit about me on this board here. By the way, if all of these cursors that you're seeing are getting a little bit much, there's a button at the top of the screen that says hide collaborators cursors. You can turn that off and it makes it a little bit less noisy. But yeah, my name's Chris Stone. Big believer in continuous improvements and in particular retrospectives. I'm not going to labor too much about myself. There's a QR code there that if you scan, it will take you to my world. There's my YouTube and all other links there. But about me, hugely believer in adventures in foreign lands, helping people learn, and the power of retrospectives. And what I often say is that the key to agility is continuous improvement. And another thing I often say is that we spend a third of our waking lives in the workplace, so we owe it to ourselves to enjoy the process. So hopefully you'll see through this session today how I aim to bring a bit of fun to the workplace. And a lot of my tips, tricks, hacks, flim-flams, and strategies around retrospectives and continuous improvement often lean into how you can have a bit of fun in the process as well. So what I'd like to do first, that's a bit about me. I'd like to learn a bit about you. And the way we're going to do so is I'm going to bring everyone's attention to here. And we've got a bit of a retro confidence scale. So from your perspective, where are you on this scale? You can share your view by dragging one of these little flags onto that scale accordingly. You might be 0 confidence earlier in your journey with retrospectives, or you might already have this, but let me know where you sit. To interact with this Miro board, it's just a left click to drag and drop these items. Just make sure that this little blue cursor at the left-hand side of your screen here is selected. That will allow you to drag and drop accordingly. So let's just gauge where this community is in terms of their confidence with retros. That's quite a mix. Mixture of low to medium. No one's quite got this yet, which is interesting. And equally, no one's got 0 confidence. So we're all somewhere on our journey. Keep it coming. Now, that's good to know. Scrolling down a little bit further, you will see 3 duality lines. So left-hand side of the scale and right-hand side of the scale. Again, using these little post-it notes this time, I'd like you to let me know where you are with regards to these duality lines. So retrospectives for you, are they magical on the right-hand side, or are they thumbs down experiences? Are they light bulb moments, great for ideas, or are they confusing? And are they powerful versus so frustrating that they make your laptop want to explode? So you should be here now. Share your thoughts from your perspective. What are retrospectives for you? Drag and drop these little post-it guys to let me know where you're at. The Miro link, by the way, should be pinned at the top of the chat. And Tennille has kindly just shared the link once more. Okay, so most of us are believing that retros are magical. We've got a mixture on the size, on the scale relating to light bulb moments versus confusion. And most of us feel retrospectives are powerful. Brilliant. Let's delve a bit deeper then. So retrospectives are, and just share on these post-it notes this time, just a few words as to what retrospectives are, again, from your experience. So a simple double left click inside any of these post-it notes will allow you to type inside them, and we can start to see en masse what people feel about retrospectives. So just a few words on what they are for you. And if I've summoned you, by the way, you can still move your cursor and it will allow you to interact. It just allows me to bring you to where I am on the board. All right, what we got? Eye openers, empowering, honest, necessary, long. Okay. Very good. Therapeutic. Yeah, they can be quite cathartic. They can be great for building trust. A space to reflect and find ways of improving. I love them. Someone's shouting, I love them. We can born a lot of ideas. It's where we can create lots of ideas. Someone said fake. It's an interesting one. I don't think I've had that before. Harmonious. Interesting. But sometimes perceived as unwanted. Absolutely. All right. So we've got lots of different perspectives here. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Okay. What we're going to do next is I firmly believe in empowering you folks to choose how we go with this talk, with this session today. You have 4 options. Imagine those storybooks, the storybooks I used to read a lot as a child, where those choose your own adventure style storybooks. And what would happen is you'd have a hero, and that hero would be on a journey, some sort of adventure, and you'd be reading the page and it says, if you want to choose this direction, you want to go into this dungeon, turn to page 324. And you get to page 324 and you find out your character has been killed. They died. And I'll be like, no, I didn't go to that page, and I'll go back to the beginning. That's how this talk's going to work. You're going to choose the direction. And your options are, do you want to discuss the foundations of retrospectives, the core things that need to be in place to enable continuous improvement? Do you want to talk about facilitation styles and approaches to get the best out of retrospectives? Do you want to explore lots of different formats that you could use to bring a bit of energy and creativity to them? Or do you want to explore the finishing up side of things, where you turn those insights from a retrospective into those all-important actions? And again, I can see some of you have started to do it. You know the score. Drag the little post-it notes onto the section that you want to explore first. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to cover as many of the tips and tricks that we have time for in the time box we have available. So we've got about another 50 minutes to explore these options. It's currently looking like facilitation is taking a huge lead. Share your perspective here. Okay, I think facilitation is the winner, closely followed by formats. So a simple click here. See this little arrow? Pressing that on the facilitation button. If you press that, you'll be taken to here. And this is where we're going to start. So bringing everyone to me now. Here's a question for you. How does silence feel during a retrospective? And again, you've got a duality line. It's so uncomfortable on the left-hand side of the scale, or I've got this on the right-hand side of the scale. Drag and drop a post-it note accordingly. And if you feel comfortable doing so, feel free to share out loud, share a few experiences of yourselves with how silence feels during a retro, or indeed any meeting, in fact. You ask a question and it goes silence. How does it feel? Or is that, again, a massive mixture here? Huge mixture. Okay. So some of us have got this and some of us less so. I'm going to be very honest with you folks. I used to hate silence. And I don't mean the sound of silence by Simon and Garfunkel. Silence was this painful experience. You ask a question, you wait, and you think, oh, someone will speak eventually. Someone will speak, and they don't. And these little thoughts used to start spinning in my mind. They used to tell me, Chris, you've asked the wrong question. Chris, they're bored. They don't care. Maybe they're not even focused or paying attention. And these intrusive thoughts going through my mind, they made me think, oh, I need to speak out. I need to puncture that silence myself. I need to break that silence. Now, important to note, if you're feeling that, pretty sure everyone else is feeling that too, okay? There is a reason that when it comes to policing, the FBI and policing bodies all over the world, they use silence to their advantage. It's an ally to them because that silence you're feeling, everyone else feels too, okay? So if you are trying to create a good retrospective experience, you ask a question, it falls flat, no one speaks, one of the worst things you can do is to speak yourself first, because then you might steer the direction of that conversation towards your own biases rather than the needs of the team. So silence is your ally. And if you are feeling very brave, what you can do is try a completely silent retrospective. Have I gone? Yeah, I've gone to facilitation styles. So a completely silent retrospective, the way that works is no one speaks. It was introduced to me by a gent called Dov Sal. And if you want to learn a bit more about it in detail, you can click on this space here. There's a YouTube video. Dov and I explore how it works. But essentially, all you need is a virtual whiteboard, a bit like this, some clear principles, i.e. no one speaks, and then just go with it. Now, you can interact still. It doesn't mean that you can't get to the outcome of a retrospective. You can put Post-it notes on this board, and if you have a question, you might put it next to that Post-it note in a different color, asking for clarification. What I'm emphasizing here is that you can try embracing different styles of doing retrospectives by embracing the power of silence. Another tip is to wait 7 to 10 seconds before you speak after asking a question, because again, someone else will fill that silence themselves. So worth trying this. Give it a go if you feel safe to do so. I would say this is probably more for more experienced teams, so not a team that's brand new to retrospectives, but it can be very powerful because what it can do is it can create focus. If you don't have the ability to ask a question, the only way you can work as a team is by focusing on the screen on this board and the outcomes of the retrospective, rather than perhaps getting distracted by a Teams message or a Slack message or an email. You are focused collectively on achieving the goal of a retrospective, which is obviously outcomes, continuous improvement, new actions, learning. So yeah, give that a try, folks. If you've never tried it before, silence is your ally. For awareness, I don't tend to have a defined Q&A period during these talks. So if you have a question, feel free to chip in, ask it throughout. But I do pause iteratively to check. Who's familiar with this format? Stop, start, continue. Maybe type a message in the chat and let me know. It's one of the most common formats in the world, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure most people have heard of this one. Now, this might be very contrary to my own recommendations about mixing it up. However, depending on the needs of the team, sometimes fixing the format can be very powerful. All right. So yeah, someone's saying that's the only one I know, and that's fine. It's often a starting point. Now, I have created hundreds of retrospective templates, all designed at bringing different ways of doing them, of bringing energy, bringing creativity, provoking thoughts. However, a stop, start, continue. What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? What should we continue doing? It's a great basis for kicking a new team off to the concept of retrospectives. So it can be quite powerful. Now, what you've got to bear in mind is that the outcome of a retrospective is continuous improvement. And those outcomes are dependent on what the needs of the team are. So if a team is using the same format over and over, and it results in stability and consistency in terms of their ways of working, and ultimately still results in continuous improvement, that is the important thing, not necessarily the format you're using. So one recommendation I have for you is, depending on the needs of the team, fix the format, keep it consistent for a while, and then maybe you start to choose and rotate from there. So maybe try it for 3-4 iterations. gauge how it works. Are we still getting value from this? And then try and mix it up. One of the fundamental principles I often say is ask the team, what do they need first? So try it, give it a go, and then explore whether you want to try something different. Now, the inverse of that, the opposite of that, is flexing the format. It can be really powerful to mix things up and try something different. I mentioned hundreds of templates out there. Personally, I've created over 100. There is a gent named Dave Westgarth in the UK who has created almost 100 himself. There are so many formats out there. You can go on the Miroverse and find a ton of them also instantly clickable and accessible. I remember the days when, for me, preparing a retrospective used to be, right, here is the time box. I need to find some inspiration. I need to go to the meeting room half hour beforehand and prepare all the visuals and get all the post-it notes, etc., etc. And it took time. Whereas nowadays, given there are so many options out there, I can drag and drop or click and start using plug and play almost a retrospective pre-made and ready to go. So it's massively saved my own time, but it saved the time of others as well. Now, flexing the format can be really powerful because, as I mentioned, it brings about that creativity. It brings about a bit of fun. It can unlock a lot of things that you may not have realized. So if I'm zooming in a little bit, what you can see here is the Diwali retrospective. This one resonates very heavily with non-Western cultures. So if you go out in India, they love that. They've just had Holi. I've never created a Holi retrospective. That's a recent Indian holiday. I think it was actually yesterday. I want to create one of those. And what I found by doing this is it's just unlocked their creativity. It's got them speaking more than they ever have because it's based on their microculture rather than just a westernized format, start, stop, continue. So you've got topical themes you could use and seasonal elements. You've got just a bit of fun. So the dog meme retrospective, where you explore some of the famous memes relating to dogs as a way of prompting continuous improvement, i.e., the insanity wolf. I've got 99 problems. You're all of them. So what problems have we got as a team? Or this is fine. You've got that dog where everything's on fire. You've got what's making us nervous as a team. There's a few ways of doing it there. What about cricket? So you could be doing it in terms of sports metaphors. So what do we hit for six? What do we do really well in the last iteration? Or what bowled us out? Or how's that? Where do we need an extra third eye or an extra bit of support? You've got Squid Games, no spoilers, but there is ways you can do it with TVs, television. There's Harry Potter, there's the Lord of the Rings. There are so many templates out there, and it just brings a bit of creativity. So if you haven't yet tried a retrospective on a different format, I recommend you give it a go. And one of the best things you can do is don't just choose a format and apply it. Speak to the team and say, hey, here are some options. Which of these would you like? And then you're empowering the team to choose. Another technique I often use is I use icebreakers, and we'll touch upon that a bit later. I use icebreakers to build a bit of a picture as to what our team's like. Yes, John, there will be a link to the templates. Don't worry. I build a bit of a wall of information about what our team's microculture is, what their passions and likes and dislikes. And from that, you can say, hey, I've noticed that a lot of our team like this sort of music. Great, let's do a retrospective on that. I've got a Prodigy retrospective. I've got a Queen the Rock Band retrospective. I've got all sorts available. You can always find one or even create one with them. It results in so much more engagement. This is where I gained my notoriety in the Agile world by creating engaging retrospectives for people that then people loved. I started getting messages from people all over the world saying, this is amazing. This helped our team in this way. We're looking forward to the next one. And it's all because I decided to disrupt a little bit and try and create something new. How about, excuse my language, fuck the format. Sometimes all you need is an open and honest conversation with your team about where they need to improve most. This option, from a facilitation standpoint, works best if you're trying something and isn't working. And I'll give you an example. I took a retrospective, the Queen, the Rock Band retrospective, to a retro with a bunch of senior leaders, and I thought this is gonna work really well. This is one of my most popular ones. And for whatever reason, and you don't know why at the time, it might be highly stressful. There could be lots of reasons why they weren't feeling it. It wasn't working. There was, they weren't quite engaging with it. So I said, guys, just ignore the format. What is our biggest issue that we need to solve? What is our biggest problem right now? What's the elephant in our room? And let's talk about that. Sometimes a format can be distracting. And actually what you really need to narrow down to and create the space for is the conversation about the biggest matter, the biggest important thing. Someone told me a story just a few days ago, actually, about how they use this technique. The same thing applied. They just said, hey, fuck the format. Let's have an honest conversation. And it resulted in a very powerful engagement, a great conversation. Still sharing my screen, I hope. It ends up being one of my most successful retrospectives, and it really helps them. So sometimes a format is distracting. You don't always need it. On that note, what I'm going to emphasize is that all of these tips and tricks I'm sharing with you, they are options. Imagine them like tools in your retrospective arsenal now. And they are things for you to try, experiment with, fail with, succeed with. They may not all apply your context, but I hope they will inspire you to think a little bit differently and think next time you're facing one of these challenges, maybe I can try this. So they're not a guidebook. That it's not a one size fits all that you should try all of these. They are just options. Just bear that in mind. Now, what about facilitating or rotating the facilitator? Has anyone tried this? Let me know in the chat if you've tried rotating who facilitates the retrospective. No? Okay. This is where I'm practicing that wait 7 to 10 seconds thing. All right, so not many people have. Tobias has. Awesome. Okay, there's a few yes, some people failed. So some people have tried it, some people haven't. Why do we do this to begin with? Now, I believe that facilitation and continuous improvement is a team sport. Okay, it's not just for one person. What we don't want to do is create a dependence on a facilitator, such as a scrum master or an agile coach, to be the only person who ensures continuous improvement happens. So by rotating who facilitates, what we do is we start to build a shared skill for facilitating. We start to build a shared accountability for ensuring retrospectives happen and well. And we can reduce the dependency on an agile coach or scrum master to do so. Okay. So there's lots of ways you can do this. And I've got an image of musical chairs here. Every time you have a new facilitator, they bring their own stance, their own energy, their own style to the session. So again, that can be more engaging. It can mix things up, keep things fresh. And it can bring in, as I said, the capability, the skill for continuous improvement into the team rather than them being reliant upon one person. Now, some people are sharing some stories about they've tried it and it didn't work. And some people don't want to facilitate, and that's okay. I'm not suggesting you force people to facilitate. What I'm suggesting is that you try to create an environment where it's a team sport and it can help them, to help them to learn. There might be lots of reasons why a certain person is afraid of the facilitator role. Maybe they are afraid of failing. Maybe they are afraid of the prep, or they don't have the time. There are all sorts of reasons. What I tend to do when I'm using this approach is I tend to look for some sort of volunteer and say, hey, what I want to do is try and create a skill or the collective capability for this. And I'm looking for a volunteer to try out, and I'll provide some mentorship, or I might help them find a format they may want to try. And then it becomes a kind of a voluntary thing where someone then nominates the next person to do it. Okay. So there are so many ways you can do it. And what I find is what we don't want to do is put someone on the spot and say, right, you're facilitating next if they don't feel comfortable. It's better to create an environment where you're saying, right, the goal is we want to reduce the dependency on one person. And how can we make that happen? And here are some options. So I do recommend you give this a go. Again, what we're doing here is reducing the dependency on one person and enabling the collective skill of continuous improvement and facilitation to build. And that leads me on to the dealer's choice approach. And a question for you, back on this Miro board, we are here now. How does it feel when you're in a meeting and someone just calls you out to share one by one? How does it feel from your perspective? Again, type inside these post-it notes here. Pressure. Yes, there is pressure. Bored. Okay. Anxiety inducing. Yeah, it can be a bit panicky. Someone's excited by it. Someone's surprised. Someone's formulaic. Normal. Yeah. For some people, it's very normal. It's your chance to shine. See, I love that positivity. Your chance to shine. Okay. Now, When I ask this question, many people often reference it being a bit like school or a bit like a status report, right? So someone is saying, hey, you give your update now, you give your update now. And I don't believe this happens with ill intention. I don't believe this is to cause anxiety or pressure or stress. Often it comes with good intent, i.e., I want to ensure everyone feels included. So I'm going to invite someone to speak. I'm going to invite someone to speak. And that's a great thing. We should welcome that. But what often happens is a facilitator does that. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we're in a daily stand-up or a daily sync, and the Scrum Master is facilitating that, or the retrospective indeed, and someone says, hey, Haley, what do you think? And then it kind of gets handed back to the facilitator. And then someone says, oh, Tanil, what do you think? And then it gets handed back to Chris as the facilitator. And then Chris says, oh, Tobias, what do you think? It can feel like you are all reporting to me in some capacity, which isn't ideal. Okay. Now, again, in the interest of creating a collective responsibility and skill for group involvement and inclusivity, I recommend using an approach I call the dealer's choice. So the way that works is, imagine you're in that same scenario and you find someone to go first. And if it's a stand-up or a retro, often I say that the last person to join speaks first. But once that person goes, you get them to nominate the next person to speak. All right. So that way it becomes more conversational, and it's a group responsibility for ensuring involvement rather than the facilitator doing so. So from a facilitation standpoint, it doesn't matter which meeting you're in. If you are facilitating it, try that approach. You find the first person to speak, and whatever capacity that is, maybe someone volunteers to do so. Maybe the question asks or is asked and someone speaks, and then you say, hey, you nominate the next person to speak. I find that can be very powerful in facilitating a great group involved discussion. Okay. Now, escaping the environment. I'm a big fan of this. Would anyone feel brave enough to read this sentence out loud to the group? If you're not, I'll do it. Well, I shouldn't do it because I know the answer to this, but if you don't feel comfortable doing so, just read it and I will point out in a moment. All good. Okay. So did anyone notice when they were reading that in their head, did they spot the double the? No? Yes. So some of you caught it, some of you didn't. All right. Now, the reason we miss it is because our brains are pattern recognition machines, right? And we filter out information that isn't as relevant to us. Okay. So how does that apply in the context of retrospectives and continuous improvement? Well, if you've been involved in the same team for years, for a long time, you can stop to spot the things that are obvious, the dysfunctions, the errors, the things you could be better, because you've just become so entrenched in how that team works that you lose the ability to see things that are obvious. It's why when you're writing a big document, it's really helpful to have someone else look at it because they can spot your errors. It's why if we're building software, we have peer reviews because they might, again, catch things that avoid something going wrong before it goes live into production. So we've got this challenge. We are so entrenched in the way we work that we can stop spotting things. A powerful thing to do from a continuous improvement perspective is just literally escape the environment you're in. And there are multiple ways you can do so. Starting with actually physically escaping the environment. Rather than doing a retrospective from your usual desk, usual office, and otherwise, just get out for a walk. Take some headphones with you, go out for a walk. As long as you've got someone capturing, some notes in some capacity, then you're still going to get to the outcome of a retrospective. I get my best ideas when I'm out for a walk. There's a great visual I've seen in the past where it shows ideas. It shows like a visual. It says like a tap, and the tap is just dripping like a leaking tap. One single bit of water coming out every time. And beneath it said, ideas in a meeting. Just drip, drip, drip. And then the next image was like a waterfall. And it says, ideas when you're out doing something different, or you're out in nature, or you're out for a walk. And the same is true with me. My best ideas don't happen in a forced time box, under pressure, responding to a bunch of questions facilitated by someone else. Some great ideas can happen that way, but my best ideas don't. So my encouragement to you, if you haven't tried this, go out for a walk, physically escape the environment, get away from your screen. That can unlock different thinking. Another option you have is to have a guest facilitator. Someone like myself, you've got a mini cartoon Chris there. You can have a guest facilitator come in and see how you're getting on. You know, they might sit in the background, make some observations, and they might spot some things that you've stopped seeing. You can have a friendly agile coach or scrum master or just another eye from another team come in and support you, and you could do the same for them. So that can be quite powerful too. And the last option there, scrolling down a little bit further, is if you're really extreme and you have the option to do so, what you could do is do pair ceremonies. If you're familiar with pair programming, a couple of people working together, spotting each other's mistakes, just actively working on things. If you have the ability to do so, why not try pair ceremonies where a whole team joins another whole team's meetings? And again, not there to disrupt, but to observe how they do things. And you might learn some things, you might learn some approaches, you might learn some team dynamics, and they can do the same. And it can just propagate and cross-pollinate ideas back across different teams and help you spot some of the obvious areas that you may not be spotting anymore. So escaping the environment can be very powerful. Conscious of time, how would you folks like to play a game? Yeah, I see a yes from Haley. Anyone else? Who wants to play a game? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's play a game. What we're going to do is we're going to dive across to here on the board. Who's familiar with the game Never Have I Ever? Yeah? It's a drinking game. I did this same game at an event in Zurich last week, but I was there in person. And people had some drinks. It was the evening. And I was up there and I said, right, we're going to play Never Have I Ever. The way Never Have I Ever works is you say a statement, and if you've done that action, you take a drink. Okay, so you admit to something that you've done. So it's a drinking game. Great way to learn about people, great way to get drunk. But you can apply that same game concept to retrospectives. And let me show you how. So you will see on this board, we've got a series of questions on the left. You will also see a tick and a cross. Now, it's very early for some of you around the world. I don't recommend drinking right now. If you're feeling it, yeah, you do you. The way you're going to admit or share from your perspective whether you've done this is by hovering your cursor over either the tick or the cross. So you need to interact with Miro here. I'm going to enable the collaborators' cursors so I can see everyone moving in parallel. And we're going to choose a statement, and then I'm going to get someone else to choose the next statement. So as an example, let's do a practice one. Never have I ever skipped a retrospective. If you have skipped a retrospective, move your cursor so it's on the tick. If you've never skipped a retrospective, move your cursor so it's on the cross. Let's see how we're doing on this one. Oh, it's a bit of a split. So there's loads of people that have skipped retrospectives. Oh, bad people. I joke. It's fine. Right. So what now we've done is we've learned something. We've learned some dysfunctional behavior about the team, and we'd use that to try and have a discussion. What would we do next? What could we commit to help us avoid skipping retrospectives in the future? Let's try another statement. Who wants to? Someone type in the chat what the next one should be. There's a list on the left here. Someone type which one they want to do next, and then we'll see what the crowd thinks. Whoever types it first is the winner. Said no to a stakeholder. Okay, so never have I said no. Move your cursor to the appropriate one. If you've said no to a stakeholder on the tick, if you've never said no to a stakeholder, put your cursor on the cross. Here we go. So more of you have done this than not. That's a good thing. Saying no isn't bad. It's helpful. You sometimes need to do so to have focus, to complete things. All right. So someone suggested, never have I ever run an experiment with how we work. This is a great one for retrospective. So we're going to do this now. Never have I ever run an experiment with how the team works. If you have done this, your cursor should be on the tick. If you've never done this, it should be on the cross. Oh, and someone's moved the There we go. Ooh, what happened there? The giant Tetris has moved. Let me just shift that back. There we go. It was locked. Odd. Anyway, so we can see the majority of you have done this, and that's great, but some of you haven't. So the question becomes, how can we experiment with our ways of working that meet the needs of our team? What could we try next to improve? Maybe we need to try a new format. Maybe we need to try a new cadence for our meetings. Maybe we need to try experimenting with different questions we ask in a daily stand-up. There's lots of ways of doing this. We're going to do one more. Spoke too much in a meeting. Here's a good one. Do one more and then we're going to move on. Never have I ever spoke too much at a meeting. Again, tick if you have done this, cross if you've never done this. Okay, so most of us have been guilty of this, and it's great to admit we've all been guilty of this. And what's the consequence of us speaking too much in meetings is that other people don't get to speak. They don't get their ideas across. They can feel drowned out. So from a team dynamics perspective, from an inclusivity perspective, us speaking too much in a meeting, it can be damaging. So again, if this is happening, you do this retrospective format as a team and you identify some challenges, then it becomes, okay, great. We've identified a problem. How can we as a team, it's us against the problem, how can we as a team address that? And what commitments do we want to make? Never will we ever do these things again. So just a different way of trying retrospectives. Now, whilst we're on the topic, there is also lots of other ways to gamify retros. Someone in the chat earlier, I spotted them, mentioned being a Dungeons and Dragons aficionado or creator. I have a Dungeons and Dragons retrospective. If you haven't seen it, take a look. There's also a Tetris retrospective. I haven't actually released this one yet, but the way it works is at random, and bringing your attention to here, at random, you select, you basically roll a dice, and you are given a different block, one of these little tetraminos. They're called tetraminos, and each tetramino corresponds with a different prompt. For example, it could prompt you about how you need to improve or what's your missing ingredient as a team and otherwise. And the objective as a team is to try and fill this grid with as few blocks as possible. So there's just lots of different ways of gamifying retrospectives. Now, what I'm also going to do, just because I love this example, I'm going to bring your attention to another game. The game is Battleships. Now, before we do it, are any of these statements familiar to you? So we're here on the board now. We're too busy to change. Retrospectives won't work for us, and retros don't add value because things never change. Any of those common? Any of you experience those? Let me know in the chat. I'm seeing a yes, very, yeah, no. Glad to hear it, Anna. Oh, you've heard those, yeah. This is, again, a very common response especially when you're introducing retrospectives to a new team, or perhaps a company's tried it and hasn't really gotten the results they want from it, so they stop doing so. So what this game does is a really powerful way of demonstrating the value and the power of retrospectives. And we do so through a game called Battleships. Now, Battleships, the game, hopefully you're all familiar with it. It's a great childhood game. You can play it as an adult, in fairness. I've played a Battle Shots version of this game. A lot of my games involve drinking. But essentially what you're doing is you're trying to sink your opponent's ships. And I'm going to share my screen and we're going to play this game. Well, I'm going to continue sharing my screen, but I need to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. So let me just adjust. We're going to switch. And this time we're going to see the window. I will do the entire screen. Give me a thumbs up when you can see the entire window. So now we're good? Yeah, okay. So the way this game works is the first round, it's delayed feedback, right? What happens when we don't know, we don't have any answer, we don't have any feedback on what we're doing? Essentially, you as an audience are going to call out or type some grid references. I would prefer you to call out. Let's make this interactive. So come off mute and call them out. Your objective is to sync as many of these ships as possible. And in the first round, you're going to make attempts. You're going to be doing this. And the problem is you won't know if you've sunk anything or not. Okay. So the first thing we do is I'll refresh the screen. So you've got the full 30 attempts. But the first question is, how many ships do you think you'll sink of the 7 in 5 minutes with 30 shots. Give me your estimates now. What are your estimates? All 7, 2, 3, 1, 4. All right, lots of different options. Some of you are feeling good. 7 is a high number. I think I'm seeing about an average of 2, 3, maybe 3. Okay, so 3 is going to be our estimate. Let's see what we do. And again, I'm going to refresh that screen, and you're going to call out the grid references, and I'm going to input them. I would love it if you could speak aloud rather than doing the chat, because otherwise I've got to keep switching back and forth between screens. It will be more helpful. Unless Haley wants to monitor the chat and call them out for me. So, ready to start? 5 minutes. Over to you. Where are we starting?
We have a C3.
H2, C3.
E1.
Is that D5?
E1.
Oh, E1, sorry.
Yeah. E2.
And we have a B4 as well.
E2, B4.
A1.
A1.
B6.
B6.
D8.
B8.
And D8.
All right, D8.
C6 and
C6.
A6 as well.
C6, A6, okay. 19 shots to go.
F7, 6,
F7.
5, and 4.
All right, so someone's starting to cluster these, okay.
E3.
E3.
H8.
H8, yeah.
G4 and 5.
G4 and 5. 11 shots to go.
F8.
F8.
D5.
D5, right in the middle.
E5.
E5.
C2.
C2, C1, 6 shots to go.
G2.
H6.
Had G2, H6, I think.
Yep.
4 more.
A3.
A3.
D4 and D3.
D4.
And
Is that B3?
D3. D3.
Oh, D3.
Yeah.
Last one. Who wants it?
C7.
C7. All right. All shots done. 2 minutes and 23 seconds were left. Now, before we find out how you did, whether you hit as many as you estimated, a question. How did that feel? Let me know in the chat or speak aloud. How did that feel?
Extremely weird.
Weird.
Yeah.
All right.
Strange.
Exciting.
Thrilling. Anna, that's an interesting use of experience. That thrills you? Okay, cool. You do you. Awkward. What made it awkward?
You never know
think
when to speak or not. I think that was the awkward. And with a group of people you don't know.
Definitely, I can relate with that one. Afraid that you are speaking above somebody else.
So we got some team dynamics thing. There's a concept called the bystander effect, where the more people there are in a situation, the less you want to either help out or contribute because you think someone else will speak and therefore you don't yourself. Right, so we've experienced that. But yeah, so there are some things here about it being awkward, unproductive. We don't know whether we've achieved anything. People talk about being chaotic, frustrating. So our estimate was 2 or 3. Let's see how you've actually done. 4 ships. That's actually pretty good. I would say that's the lucky end of the scale. To be honest, we may as well drawn a smiley face on that screen, because that's commonly what happens. You get 2 or maybe 2 ships sunk, and it's frustrating and it's unproductive. And from a finishing things perspective, we don't enjoy it. Now, the next round is going to be different. You will get instant feedback. You will know if you've made an attempt. You will know if it's been successful or not. And then you can adjust your approach accordingly. Now, not to create any undue pressure, I did this with an audience of 300 in Belgrade once, Serbia, and they got all 7. And that was the first time that had ever happened. So the challenge to you, can you get 7? Now, same approach. I'm going to refresh the screen. You'll still have 5 minutes. You'll have 30 attempts. Only this time, you get to adjust your approach accordingly. Before we start, is there anything you as a team, you are now a team, this big audience, is there anything you want to do differently to give yourself a better chance of success this time?
Yeah, it might be a good idea somebody coordinates.
Okay, so we've got coordination, start top to bottom maybe. Group boxes more, bit of planning. Essentially what I'm doing here is I'm giving you the opportunity to retrospect as a team, to plan how you might do it differently, to improve your processes. If we think about the first round, it was quite a lot like waterfall delivery or non-iterative development. You had an outcome and you just went at it and you only found out at the end whether you were successful or not. That is typical of waterfall delivery. Okay, so we've discussed some ideas as to what we're going to do differently. I'm conscious of time, so we're gonna hit it now. We're gonna go for it. We're gonna see if we can beat 4. That's the goal. If you can hit 7, even better. So, continuing, instant feedback. Over to you. Call those references out.
D4.
E4.
Yep.
Bang. Got it in 1.
Okay, then D3.
D3. No.
E4.
E4. Yeah, we're happy with E4.
Yeah.
1 ship sunk already.
Okay. 1 is
3
done.
shots done.
Passing the ball to somebody else.
Okay, A1.
A1. Nope.
No.
B2.
B2. Nope.
C3.
C3. Bang. We've got a hit.
B3.
B3. Nope.
C4.
There we go.
C5.
There we go.
C6.
There we go. Two down, 20 shots to go.
F2.
F2. Yes, we're on a roll.
F1.
Nope.
G2.
Nope.
H4.
Are we happy with going H4?
Maybe let's kill this one first. With
Let's
F3,
kill
for
this.
example.
Yeah. F3.
F3? Yes.
F4. F5.
Right.
F6.
There we got the big one. Right,
Another one.
Now we might want to go back to H4. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
No luck. 12 to go. 12 shots.
D8.
D8. Nope.
D8.
Oh, sorry. It's too late now. I've selected D8. I don't know why I said that. I heard 8.
G7.
G7, not G6. Okay, G7. Not feeling the plane.
H6.
Was that A6?
H6. I guess.
H6. No luck. 8 shots to go. Come on,
Okay,
we gotta beat
A6.
that.
A6 then.
Nope.
D1.
D1. Nope.
D7.
Yes.
E7.
E7. Yes.
F7.
Yep. All right.
Nice.
Three more to see if we can beat. And the trouble is, we've got these little tiny ones now.
A7.
Should we hear from someone else? Who's filling the last 3 shots?
Maybe B7?
E7? Nope.
E3.
E3, right in the middle?
G3.
No. Oh, sorry. G3. Okay, so these little hidden ones were there. So actually what we've done is we've equaled the score from last time. And what I will say is that the first round was very lucky. You got all the small ones and not really the big rounds in the first round. But the question I have is, how did that feel compared to the first round? I'm seeing someone's on camera. They're nodding. Quicker.
Yeah,
more
at this moment, you have the immediate feedback, so you know then if you need to move to the right or to where you need to move.
So we've got the immediate feedback that was helpful. It allowed us to pivot our course, alter our trajectory. It was a better chance of success because we had some information. It was maybe a little bit harder, but we managed to collaborate more. It was more engaging. Here's a question. How good does it feel at the end of the day when you get to do this? You cross off something off your to-do list. How good does that feel? We get a little buzz. We get a hit of dopamine. It feels amazing. We've completed something. It's been successful.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Yeah, absolutely. The first round, it was just chaos, right? We didn't know if we were successful. In this, we saw progress. We got a bit of a buzz about it. It's a bit like when you complete things in a sprint or an iteration and you don't have to carry them over from sprint to sprint because you've done stuff. So this exercise, very simple. In 10 minutes, you can work with a team and emphasize the importance of shorter feedback loops, because essentially that's what Agile is to me. Agility is a series of short feedback loops that enable you to learn to continuously capture some information and adjust your approach accordingly to give yourself a better chance of success. Now, because of time, I'm going to bring your attention one final time to one particular thing, because someone mentioned retros being long. And this is one of my favorite tips about retrospectives. Question for you. How long are your retros? Drag and drop onto this little scale accordingly. On the left-hand side, 30 minutes. On the right-hand side, over 2 hours. Okay, so already we can see the majority of these are 1 hour or more. Second question, how long is your attention span? On the left-hand side, 5 minutes. On the right-hand side, over an hour. Drag and drop accordingly. Okay, so again, what we're seeing here is the majority are 30 minutes or less. So what does that tell you? If the most of our retrospectives are over an hour, but most of our attention spans are far shorter than that, in fact, even half of that, why are we holding such long retrospectives? Tell me, what typically happens at the end of a retrospective? We capture actions, or most people capture actions. And the problem is if we're saving the capturing of actions to the end of the retrospective, at a time when our minds are already thinking about what's for lunch, what's my next meeting, our attention spans are gone, then we're going to cause ourselves some problems. So the thing I emphasize is, and this might be something to experiment with, a little less conversation, a little more action. To quote the immortal words of Elvis Presley, try, if you're currently doing a 60-minute retro, shorten it to 45, shorten it to 30, in fact. If you're doing 4 prompts as a retrospective, i.e. liked, learned, loved, lacked, take it down to 2 or 3. Do the prompt, identify something, pull an action out of it as you go along, capture actions as you go along, as Casper says. And then if you've got a few actions, that's great. You don't need to capture a laundry list of 10 things. Capture a few actions, close the retrospective, and then give yourselves more time to focus on delivering things. Because there's no point capturing a list of 10 things and never delivering upon them. Okay? So that's just to address the point that someone said earlier about them being too long. Now, it would be poor form of me as someone who's a fan of continuous improvement and so passionate about it, not to inspect and adapt how this workshop was for you. So here we are on this board. We want to learn your return, how you feel about the return on time invested from your perspective. The way you can share is on the left-hand side of the scale, we've got the worst ever use of my time, and the right-hand side is the best use of my time. Drag and drop one of those post-it notes on that scale accordingly. Feel free to add any comments, any words about what you found useful or otherwise. All feedback is welcome. It will help me ensure that these workshops are as best as they can be. As I said, this in particular session, it wasn't designed to deep dive into, to some of the things. It was more of an inspirational high level. Here are lots of options and ideas that you could try to bring life to your retros. Once you've shared a bit of feedback, I will point you all towards some great resources that you can find useful, some actionable tips, some free templates that you can all use straight away. And we will close out the session. So I'm liking that people are liking the format. Good to hear. The board can't be copied. No, that's my personal intellectual property. You can still visit the boards and use it as inspiration. And there's a lot of this content is available in my book and on my website. It's all for free, but I can't make the boards copyable, I'm afraid. I apologize if anyone wasn't able to use the board for any reason. Now, conscious of time again, available resources for you, bringing everyone's attention down to here. I'm still sharing my screen, I believe. If you've liked what you've seen, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content on agility there. I do have a YouTube channel with thousands of followers. There is a link to my website there where you can navigate to and find hundreds of freely accessible retro templates. Now, you should note that all of those templates, or the majority of those templates, you can use them in any format. It doesn't have to be Miro, Mural, any virtual whiteboards, because what I do is I enable them to be accessed as an image, which you can load into your whiteboard tool, lock in the background, and overlay post-its on top. So feel free to browse around those, use those as inspiration. They are formats that might bring a bit more life and energy. And I do have a book upcoming on the topic of retrospectives also. It has been a pleasure to work with Easy Agile and share my tips and tricks with you all today. Thank you for engaging with me. And yeah, anything I'll hand back to Neil.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been fabulous having you here. And I know I think everyone here would agree we've gotten so much out of today. So really appreciate your time and really appreciate the time from everyone else who's been able to join us today. We'll be sharing the recording of this session in the next few days. So please keep an eye out for that. But thank you again, and we'll hope to see you all soon.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Easy Agile Team Rhythm supports your team's agile practices, helping you work better together in Atlassian's Jira. The highly visual story map format makes it easy to run agile practices, like user story mapping, backlog refinement, and sprint or version planning. We value shared learning, which is why we support regular team retrospectives. So you're always getting better at what you do and delivering software your customers will love.